So welcome to Lightroom, and Lightroom is really added to the develop module. And when Adobe first came out with the subscription module or subscription mode for Lightroom and Photoshop, there's a lot of uproar, and I thought it sucked at first, but I like it now because they are not afraid to add things to Lightroom that they wouldn't have added otherwise if people were buying it separate from Photoshop. So things like this, they probably could have done 5 years ago. Not really, it's AI. But a lot of things they couldn't do before that they do now, and this is a very cool one. So in the latest version of Lightroom Classic, and we're using Classic, they have added in the develop module a area down here called lens blur. And so you'll notice that it says early access. So Adobe is saying that this is a one step past beta. So it's still in development, and they're giving us early access because it works good enough that they're not afraid to put it out there. But they are still wanting comments. And you'll notice at the bottom of the lens blur box, they want feedback. So anytime something doesn't work or you do like something, if you send them feedback, it will help them make the product better for us in the future, which is really cool. So it is on the basics, it is really easy to use. Here in the lens blur area, you click on the little box that says apply, and it will apply the lens blur to the photo. Now, the whole key is where in the photo does it apply it and how much, and that we have a good deal of control over. So the default amount is 50, and if you look at this photo, you'll see, if you noticed before, and anytime we don't want to see what it's doing, we can click and hold on the eyeball and it'll go away. So there's the before without any lens blur. There's after with 50%. So lots of times when I'm taking pictures, I want everything possible in focus. I want lots of depth of field. In a shot like this, I shot it with a lot of depth of field, f/16 probably, and just trying to get as much depth as I could. After I looked at the photo on my computer, it's pretty dang cluttered. So what I really want people to look at is the buoys in the foreground and know that there's boats in the background. Before, I would have pretty much thrown this picture away because it didn't do what I wanted to do. Now I can say, okay, let's apply some blur to it. And it goes from a range of 1 to 100. What that means, who knows? But we can just drag this and it will adjust how much blur amount is being applied. So it could be an awful lot and you really can't tell what the background is, or you can back it off and have just a little bit of it out of focus. So you can adjust it to whatever your taste is. Okay. So if you crank it all the way up and you want to go back to the default amount, you can either double click right on the little icon or double click on the word, and it goes back to the default amount. So how do we control what it is blurring? Well, that's a little tricky. Not really. Here in the focal range. So what they have done is they're using AI to create a map of the depth of focus in the picture. What the hell does that mean? I'm not real sure, but basically they break down the photo from things that are closest to you to farthest away. And you can visualize that map, the depth map, with this little button down here and click on visualize depth. And I'm checking that. And so whatever is lightest in the photo is closest to you. Whatever is darkest in the photo is farther away. So we know that whatever this is closer to me, the sky, background is farther away, and it goes from lighter colors to darker colors. Why is that important? We'll see here in a moment. So we have a slider that shows us our focal range. I'm going to unclick this. It'll help us see it even better. And I'm going to blur it a whole bunch to help visualize it. So we can move this slider up and down the range, and different things will come in focus or come out of focus. So if I move it all the way to the left, whatever's closest to me will be in focus. What's farthest away will be out of focus the most. If I slide it all the way to the right, whatever's farthest away is in focus, whatever's closest is out. So I can also change the size of that box. So if I want to have just what is yellow in our visual depth chart, so yellow or orange, so we know our buoys are orange. This is yellow. We can, let me uncheck that. We can grab the little handles on the left and tighten up the focus. Basically, what we're doing is we're making the depth of field shallower. So we have less depth of field as we move these handles closer together. So you can make it so it's really, really tight. And if you're not sure where that slider is hitting in your picture, there's this little target up here. They call it the point area focus. You click on that, and like I said, you click on that. There we go, and you get a target as your cursor. So if I click on this buoy, that's what's in focus. If I click on a boat back here, that's what's in focus. So I have pretty tight control over where it is focusing, because I can just click and tell it that's where I want that slider to go. And you'll notice the slider is moving as I'm clicking here, right? Pretty dang cool. So if I want, like I said, just a little bit in focus, I tighten up that slider, make sure I'm on the buoys, and now my buoys are in focus. Everything else is out. If it's too much out of focus, I slide my slider back and I get the less blur in the background. So if I have my visualized depth checked and I move that slider, it makes what's in focus white in the screen. So I can really, really tell where what it's supposed to be having in focus or what's out. Okay. Pretty cool. So I'm trying to get them buoys just right. So again,
Sorry, how did you get the white to show up?
When I check the visualized depth and either move the handle on the slider or move the slider itself.
Got it, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So as I was looking at this photo earlier, I noticed, gee, I wish it had a tool that took out the shadow of the photographer's head and his camera and tripod. And then I thought, oh, they do. It's called generative AI in Photoshop, but that hasn't come to Lightroom yet. So as we're looking at this photo, yeah, let me jump over to another photo. I'm tired of looking at this one. Let me jump over to this one. So these are some nice guys who are getting ready to go fishing in Lima, Peru. And so if I apply my blur, it's analyzing it. And it's blurring. So now my background has gone softer. If I want to go more out, I can do that. So as I look at my visual depth chart, I see that this guy is up in the purple, while these guys are, it's getting pretty dark on him. So when I look at the picture, yeah, he's coming out of focus on me. So I have a couple of choices. I can either widen my amount of what's out of focus, which in this case, that might have worked. I can make sure that he's in focus by clicking on the target. Clicking on him. Now he's in focus and they're out. But I want to make sure these guys are in focus. So again, I can do that. But I really want in this photo, I really just want these guys and him and pretty much everything else out of focus. So we have more tools. We can hit the discover toggle here and we discover that there's more stuff down here for us to play with. So we have two buttons which let us either make sure something's in focus or something is blurred. So if I click on the focus button, and then I can change the size of it here, or by using the scroll wheel on my mouse, or I'm on a laptop right now, so swiping up on my keypad, my touchpad. I can change the amount of feathering, how soft the edge is of the brush. So basically what I'm doing is I'm creating a brush and I'm going to brush where I want to have it in focus. That's not now. And then I can also adjust the flow, which is how heavy the brush reacts. So I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller, and I'm going to make sure my auto mask is checked. Auto mask looks for the edges of things and will only select things. So like when I click on his hat, not going to click on the background to ground it, so I don't have to be real exact. But now as I'm brushing, if you can tell, I can tell. Let me zoom in a little bit. It might help. There we go. So now he's in focus. If I don't like it, I can hit reset and he went back out of focus. So again, I'm going to click on that focus and I'm going to basically paint right on him. And I can adjust the blur amount only for him. So I can either make him more blurry or less, and it doesn't affect the rest of the picture when I'm changing that blur amount. Okay. Now, if I like that, I click on the plus sign and that will lock it in. Okay. Essentially. And then if I want to refine another area, say I don't want this trash can, I guess it's a trash can, in focus, I can click on the blur, come over here and blur it. And independently change how blurry I want that to be. Looking a little funky now, but. So, things like that, I don't have to eliminate them. I can just blur them out a little bit. That netting back there, just blur it out. That look a little weird? Yeah, it does. So if you overlap a little bit, say I came in here and blurred the edge of the boat and I didn't really want to, if I hold down the Option on the Mac or Control on Windows, my cursor becomes a minus sign instead of a plus sign. Hopefully you can see that. Maybe there you can see it better. So it's a minus sign. So now I am erasing the blur. Okay. So let's say that was a very important thing right there. I can have it in focus and the can out, which is kind of weird. But we can do whatever we want because we're in charge, right? So again, I set that by hitting the plus sign. If I don't hit the plus sign, it doesn't lock it in. Okay. So I have discovered that I can either do some fun things with this or save. Oh wait, there's one more thing we got here. We didn't show this yet. So there's another discovery tab here. Oops, let's hit the apply first. Sorry. Applying and analyzing. Well, while it's doing that, oh, it did it. But I was going to answer a question. Is this function in Lightroom, in the Lightroom cloud? No, this is only in Lightroom Classic. So the CC version, well, the mobile version, it's not doing this yet. I'm sure they'll get it there soon. Maybe. So we have blurred the background on this one, so we can see, gets even more. So one thing, another discovery tab we have here is this one for the bokeh, and it lets us change the bokeh of the highlights, and we have choices of how we want those highlights to flare out. And I can tell you, been a professional photographer for almost 40 years, and for 35 of them, I had never heard of bokeh, didn't care, and I'm still in the don't care zone. But we can make them look however we want. So this one is just your typical modern circular lens. This one gives you the circular shape with an overcorrected spherical aberration. So bokeh is an aberration, by the way. So this is a 5-blade. So this is what an older 5-blade lens looked like. This one is called, I don't remember what they call, so I let it pop up to show me donut rings. I used to have a 500 mirror lens. It was a mirror lens, and I shot the bejesus out of that thing, and I'd get these crazy donuts in the background. With that one, I did like my bokeh. I didn't know what it was called. I just called them donuts. But if you really like donut bokeh, 500 or 600 millimeter mirror lens. And then cat eye gives you kind of a vignetting kind of look there. So you can also adjust how much that happens. You can boost your bokeh, which is pretty weird. So you can make it bigger or smaller. So bokehs happen off of highlights, typically, out of focus in the background. And you can see as you blur more, your bokeh changes too. Notice my guy on the left, he's not blurring any, but that bokeh is getting pretty wild back there. We'll see what it does with the donuts. Oh yeah. Kind of fun. Kind of fun. Let's go nuts. Yeah. Okay. Does that make sense? So yeah, there's a comment that this is part of Camera Raw. Absolutely. So you can do all this in Camera Raw. You don't have to use Lightroom to do it. They included it in that, as they do most things like this. So when we come back to our main scene, so this is up in Acadia National Park, and a little plug, I'll be doing a workshop there in June. So if you want to go to this spot, I will take you there. One of the cool things we can do with the focus button is we can bring some of these, anything we want back into focus and give us kind of a weird look. So let's make sure our auto mask is checked. So now I can come in here and bring the boat, bring some boats back into focus. Now, if you're into reality, there's no way this can happen with a camera, but it is kind of a cool effect. Let's bring this boat back in. Yeah, I'm going a little quick here, but you get the idea. So you can get pretty creative with how you're having things in focus or out of focus in your foreground. Now, if you made a picture that is has pretty shallow depth of field to start with, this isn't going to help you much. And this doesn't work on every photo. Some look better than others, as most things are. But if you have a picture, you know, I'm, you know, this might change the way I shoot a little bit. I might try to always have everything I can in focus and then manually come back and fix it the way I want it to be exact later. I don't know. But you know, oops, get in the scene, get in the picture here. Get this fit. Get that out of the way again. So this is a picture I shot of some cheetahs in Namibia a couple of months ago. And they blend right into that background. I tried to shoot them as you know, I wanted as little depth of field as possible when I was shooting, but I wanted to have enough depth of field that they're all in focus. Well, I almost got that. But they blend right into the background, which is good for the cats, but bad for the photographer, right? They don't want to be seen, but I want them to be seen. And so I was thinking about, you know, I looked at this photo, I thought, wow, it would be cool if I could blur that background a little bit more. So let's go ahead and hit the apply here. And we're going to blur that background a whole bunch. And really make them stick out. Now, we're going to see that if we zoom in on this cat's face, it messed it up and did a little bit over here too. So let me zoom back out. So we can fix that. But first, let's tighten up the depth of field. Let's look at our depth chart here. So we're seeing what colors we have. So this one's more, this one's a lighter color than the other two. So we can tighten up our depth of field here. They're still staying light. So I see a little bit of ghosting happening. So I know I've got some work to do with the focus and the blur brush here. Okay. Okay, so now let's turn off our visualized depth. Now let me grab our focus brush, come back here and give the kitty cat its face back, which is a nice thing to do. Kitty cats like having their face. This one's losing its jaw there too. There it is. Now I got a little too much there past his jaw, so I'm going to hold down my Option on the Mac, Control on Windows, and come back in and just blur right down underneath his chin again. There we go. Now they're still blending in a little bit down in here, so I'm going to set that one first. Then I'm going to hit my blur and make my brush pretty big and come in here and blur this. Now you may be thinking what I'm thinking, that's too much, and it is. So I can adjust that amount. Bring it back. So it becomes believable, but it helps the cats jump out. Okay, so here's before. Oops. Uh, Here's before. Here's after. Now I've done some pretty rough editing here. I can get in a lot tighter and make it much more believable. Like I just noticed I have an area here that's bad. So let's grab that blur tool. We have it. I'm gonna make my cursor smaller by dragging my mouse, and let's blur that area in between the two. And I lost a little bit of, nope, that's not him. He's a skinny one. So this was basically a throwaway picture for me because I just didn't feel like the cats jumped out enough from the uh, sorry, I just read a comment. It's made me laugh. I, they didn't jump out enough from the background, just blended in too much. I mean, I had worked on this photo. I tried to darken it down. I had tried just all kinds of things, and it was like, I like the shot, but it's not going to make it. Now, I need to spend, probably half an hour working on this with the blur, and and then it'll be close. Now, I will say that this cat is not sharp enough for me. And so I have a seminar planned in April on using oh, my brain just went out on me. Sharpen AI from Topaz, thank you. And this is one that I did using Sharpen AI on this cat. And we now see he's sharp and the other ones are sharp and my background's blurry. I did this like, it hit me like an hour before the seminar. Hey, you should try one with sharpen up just that one cat and see what happens. So this is a photo that, I liked it when I shot it, hated it when I looked at it in the computer, and I'm gonna like it again. It's gonna take a lot of work to blur the background the way I want it. Let me jump back over to the other one, which is the blur that I want, but we can see how out of focus the cat is in this one. But using the Topaz AI focus, I can bring that focus back, which just bedazzles me. I just can't fathom being able to do that. But I can do it now. So, so with a combination of blurring and focusing, I'm going to save some photos that I would not have been able to do anything with before. So here's another one, kind of similar. Another plug while it's analyzing. These are burrowing owls that live down here in Florida. And so I'm doing a Florida workshop in March. And if you want to go see burrowing owls and all kinds of other things, still got some spaces left in that one. But we can blur the background on this and make the owls, jump out from that background. And hit that blur button and give some areas even some more blur. Once it's blurred to 100, you can't blur it anymore, but I can make this feel pretty realistic with the blur coming around there. Now, if I don't like the way the foreground got too blurry, I can bring that back into focus. I was shooting, this is with a 400mm lens with a 1.4 teleconverter. So I was at 560 and at f4. So I had pretty tight depth of field as it was. Um, so, I think this one looks better not having additional blur to it. It already has the blur that my lack of depth of field, my shallow depth of field had. But now I have made this one pop even more than this is another one that I never showed anybody because the birds just blended into the background, which is what they're supposed to do. That's how they survive. But I'll go back in with the Sharpen AI and bring this one back. And then this can be a nice photo again. Let me see, a couple of questions here. Loren, when you do sharpen, fix everything is. So yes, last step is to sharpen. And also, there is some problems, I guess it is, with doing masking in Lightroom. So using the traditional, well, not traditional now. These are the masking tools that they now have in Lightroom are AI also. So you need to do that first before you blur. If you try to blur first and then mask, it gets messed up. And frankly, I didn't try it to see what it does. I don't know if that crashes your computer or what it does, but Adobe says don't do that. And it's just another way that so you should always try the healing. If you're doing any healing or any of those kind of things, also you want to do it to the unblurred image. So you're better off blurring as your last step in Lightroom also. Let me see, what other question do we have there? I lost it. So yes, as soon as you click, let me come back down to our lens blur area. As soon as you click apply, it starts working on it and blurs it. And where it blurs again is dependent on the range. So some cameras, including your iPhone, have a depth map built in when you shoot in portrait mode. Nikons that have portrait mode do this. And so iPhones, if you shoot portrait mode, it creates the depth map, same thing. So if it does that, if you have a picture, which I don't, you'll have 3 little dots show up right up in here. And you can click on those 3 dots and you can tell it to either use Adobe's depth map, or you can use the one that the camera creates. Doesn't matter. Of course, Adobe thinks theirs is better than what happens in the camera, but you can do that. So after you click, so if I hit my focus and I click my plus to apply it, can you reverse that? No. You have to. So if you brought something in focus, let's say for some reason well, that's not in focus. Let's say I wanted this bird to be out of focus. So if I blur that one and look, I didn't get his eyes. Hey, that's kind of spooky. So if we blur that guy, it's kind of eerie. And hit plus, I can't undo that. So what I'd have to do then is come back and hit the focus one and then come back and repaint on it with the focus brush. Yes, can you do all the blur on a virtual copy? Yes, all these photos you're seeing are virtual copies, so I'm not gonna ruin my originals. But in Lightroom, nothing's permanent. You can always go back in and undo everything in the history. So if you look in the history panel on the left side, you'll see you have got
Loren?
things that have happened, and you can go back into your history and undo anything. But remember, that is linear. So if I come back to this point, I can't, this goes away. So everything above that goes away in the history. So
Lauren,
Yes.
is there a cutoff aperture where this is not going to work, or does that just depend on the image?
No, it depends on the image. So what it is doing is, who knows how, it sees how far away things are from the camera. So if you take a picture of like a wall, that's the same, and all of the wall is the same distance away, you can't blur it because it's all the same distance away. So it's using that depth map to figure out how far things are away. And I wish I was smart enough to figure out how to do this to write the program, because it's crazy. But if you play it on your iPhone with the portrait mode, and you want to have, you may have seen these commercials on TV now where they show, I think it's Google's phone, they show them tapping on a person, one person's in focus and then the other one's out of focus, and no, I want this one, and she wants her in focus and he wants him in focus. This is how they're doing it. They're doing it with the depth map. They're doing the same thing. They just made it on the phone so you tap it, and that's what's in focus. Thinking about it, it's the same as using this little tool here, is what they're doing to make it tap.
But Lauren, from what I see, you can blur things that are in the same focal plane. It doesn't.
Yes, you can manually by using the blur tool. Yes, but it won't automatically select the background and do that. Let me show you another one that I'm just, I shot this down in Fort Worth at the cattle drive they have, and there's something in the photo that I absolutely love, and there's just a ton of crap that I hate, right? So while it's applying, anybody seeing the bull sticking his tongue out at the other one? Probably not, right? So if I apply my blur, and I get really, really tight with I already played with this, get really, really tight with the depth of field. You can see I've got some funky things happening up here that I've got to fix. But now I've got the feel of the rest of them, but I see this bull with his tongue sticking out at this one. I've saved my picture. I mean, like I say, I've got a little work to do up here and around here. I've got some artifacting, but that would go quick. Make my brush small, come right up along the edge of there, come down on the edge of there. Same thing here. So if I want this steers, all that steers horns in focus, I just tell it to focus on those babies, and I'm just going right up the ladder. Same thing happened here. And I did a bad job, so let's hold. So to turn my plus sign to a minus, I hold down the Option key on the Mac or Control key on Windows. And it becomes a minus sign, so I am taking away what I just put into focus. But I can't wait to go through a bunch of, I used to preach pretty hard that if you had a bad photo, there's nothing you're going to do to it. This was a bad photo, and I didn't throw it away. It's not perfect right now, but give me a little bit of time, and I'm going to make this a shot that I wouldn't mind showing people. It's pretty funny, but there's a lot you can do besides just the basic. You can, if you want to have this feller in focus too, you bring him back. Yeah. Everyone is, but there's another one there. Bring them back. You can get pretty weird. And it's how realistic do you want to be? But depth of field is a, you know, our site has no depth of field. It's a limitation of cameras. You know, it's an optical. Yeah, that's pretty weird. Now, for me, I don't particularly want you looking back here at this one. I want you looking over here, at this guy. And I go in and make that a little more predominant too. But so if I want him blurred back again, I just hit the blur tool, blur button, and stroke him back out.
So Lauren, does the blurring have any effect on like the remove tool in Photoshop or the generative fill, or does it just, it doesn't care?
How do you mean?
Oh, like on the left of the bull with the tongue sticking out, you have a extra set of horns. Would you still be able to remove that even though you blurred it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So you can take it, once you take this to Photoshop, the blur has been locked in. So, you know, once you save it, export it in some manner, it's just like it happened in the camera. It doesn't know whether or not it was done in the
Lauren?
camera or done in software.
Lauren,
Yes,
So the generative fill will, I'm sorry.
go ahead, Mary.
didn't you say to do all of that kind of manipulating before you blur?
Yes, unless you're taking it to Photoshop.
Oh, okay. So if you're taking it to Photoshop for the AI, then you wait until you're finished with everything and then go to Photoshop.
In that case, it doesn't matter. It's within Lightroom that you don't want to do the generative fill. So, you know, you have the fill tools here, you know, the healing brush or whatever. Let's see what happens. If it crashes, I'll see you guys later. Well, I haven't tried that because they said not to. Yeah, it worked. What do you know? Who said there were horns there?
But Lauren, would the Photoshop generative fill probably do a blur on that? If you hadn't used the Lightroom, if you gone into Photoshop and done generative fill on that horn, would it have pulled it blurry?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
I'm not sure. This is new. I haven't tried that. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Any other questions?
What is that on the bull hanging down off his neck, the one whose tongue is sticking out?
You had me scared there for a minute. What's hanging from the bull?
Sorry.
That's his goiter.
Wow. Looks like he swallowed a bocce ball.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of, probably all of them have that. We're just not seeing them. So, of course, if I don't like what I did with those blurs, hit that reset. And they go away. A little more realistic looking, backing it off.
Lauren, when you said that whatever you do in lens blur can't be undone, it can, can't it? If you uncheck the apply box, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes, you can turn off, but that turns off all of it. What I meant was if you just say focus or do focus on this one and hit the check and then go on and do something else. There's no real easy way to go back, and you can't, it's not like you have layers in Photoshop, you can turn off the layer.
Right. Another
But
thing.
yes, in Lightroom, you can always go back to original and start from scratch if you really messed it up.
Before this, and I've been playing with it for a while, did you ever use the clarity and texture sliders to, take over an area of a photograph in order for another area to pop out?
Yes, yeah, that does a kind of similar thing, but not to the extent that this does.
Oh, this is very interesting. This has been
Yeah.
a good presentation.
Yes, so am recording this and we'll post on my website, and if you're on Meetup, I'll have a link to my website so you can watch it whenever you like, as many times as you like. This is the latest version of Lightroom Classic, which they updated. This update was October. So they do major updates twice a year. Any other questions, thoughts?
No, this was great. Thank you.
Great. So I'm going to try to do something the first Friday of every month. Next month is going to be how to photograph the upcoming solar eclipse, total solar eclipse. If you've never seen a total solar eclipse and you don't even want to bother photographing, drive someplace to see it. It is, I think, the coolest thing there is. If you want to photograph it, my two places that I would go, I am going to Dallas, which is why you're seeing a picture of the steers, since I shot that this year when I was down there scouting. Or
May I?
up north, I would be in Cleveland. Believe it or not, Cleveland has about the same high percentage chance of not having clouds as Dallas. Because of,
May I ask one thing?
sure.
This, if you use the noising, the noise reductions ability of the Lightroom,
Yes.
so the process should be after this function or before doing this function?
Denoise is not an AI function, so that shouldn't be a problem, but I would still do it first and I would do this last. It probably doesn't matter.
Mhm. But the Lightroom Classics has the AI noise reduction system.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's why I asked about it.
Yeah, I would do it before. They recommend doing anything AI-ish before you do the blur.
Before you
Just saw it didn't matter. Well, something.
So this the
I
blowing.
haven't read
uh,
why.
Oh.
Yeah.
So this blowing process should be it should be done at the last process, at the last part of the development.
Yes.
I see. Thank you.
You bet.
Lauren, I have a question about the eclipse, and maybe
Yes.
it's stupid, but can I stack all my filters instead of buying a eclipse filter?
No,
Degrade too much.
no. Won't work. You highly risk burning out your sensor. One of the things I'll show in the workshop is how to make your own for about $15 or less. And they work great. I've used them twice and on many cameras. So
Yeah, because they're not cheap.
no, and you never use them either. So 40 years till the next eclipse comes through the U.S., continental U.S. So unless you're chasing it,
Back on the blur just for a moment.
Yep,
So this is still considered a non-destructive component of the program. So I could
Absolutely.
reverse the whole thing if I don't like it.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Everything you do in Lightroom is non-destructive. You can always reverse all of it anytime, ever. Which is one of the beauties of it.
Yep, like that.
Lauren, there was a question about adding focus work even if the background was blurry in the original shot. And I missed your
No,
response to
if,
that.
if you're out of focus, this isn't gonna help you.
Okay.
Lauren, thanks for another nice job.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well.
Thank you.
No.